All right. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all this morning. We uh,
Good morning.
Good morning.
we are blessed to have a guest with us this morning. We've had Mo on several times before, and I just absolutely love hearing what he has to say. And he teaches right up my alley, I guess I should say. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to him. So welcome to Mo Thomas. Welcome, brother.
Hello,
Thank you.
Mo.
I always love coming on, feels like family. I am going to use Lenny's second season of his podcast, The Agape Guy, to hopefully set the tone for our talk today, which means sometimes we need to hear something 37 times before it sinks down to the point where we can experience what's being said. And I'm in that category for sure, especially if I've known and force fit to a certain story that I've been telling myself, and I hear something outside of that. It takes a long time, sometimes several times from different people, slightly different nuanced ways to get through that story in order to maybe tell myself a better, more beautiful story. So I'm going to share just a handful of slides. Um, you have seen some of these. I know Bob has seen some of these, but I'm going to ask a slightly different question, and it's going to sound like a basic question. It's like a Dr. Seuss kind of question. So bear with me as we do this. And first of all, let's make sure that you can see the screen in full behind me. Can you see a full screen? All right. All right. So our question today is, what is the essential me? What I mean by essential is, what is the core aspect of me that if you take everything that's temporary away, remains? So by essential, I mean, what is core to my identity? What is core to the question, who am I? And yes, we've talked about identity quite a few times when I've been on, and I've heard countless messages. So this seemingly simple question has a lot of depth. It's a profound, deep question that I just want to spend a little bit more time thinking through. You know, my love is science and quantum physics and black holes. Do you remember talking about the singularity? Can anyone remind me what the singularity is? And you don't have to raise your hand, just go ahead and pop on. Do you remember what the singularity is?
Well, it all comes back to one source. That
Yeah.
is the absolute accumulation of all gravity, all energy, all light. Uh, it's the kernel.
Mr. Colonel. So
Yep.
in a black hole uh, environment, the black hole is the center point at the core of the black hole that has taken everything that used to be in a supermassive star and imploded, condensed down to a single point, just as Bob described. So when you talk about the singularity in context of a black hole, we're taking that as a metaphor for our origin point, where everything in all of our lives and in the entire universe is condensed down to a single point at the very beginning, the very heart of the creation. What we know about the singularity, if we read the scriptures and we listen to the Spirit, is that it is infinite. It doesn't have any dimensions. It spreads, it has no name. And it's the point from which all existence emerges. Folks in the quantum physics realm call this consciousness. We would call it spirit, maybe presence, God, pure awareness. This is the heart that lies behind everything that exists in the cosmos. So if you go back far enough in our human experience, and you go back far enough in the universe's history, you're left with spirit when all there was what was spirit, and from that all things emerge. We might call that the divine community that existed before the creation. So Max Planck, one of the fathers of quantum physics, says, I regard consciousness as fundamental. Matter is derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. So his take, and most of the quantum physicists that I've read, see that everything that we see in the world of form actually is made of the substance called consciousness or spirit or God's presence. We know this immediately when we see babies. Our starting point is unfiltered and beautiful and pure. It's the light of awareness. It's the light without any filters, nothing in front of it, keeping us from seeing the beauty of the Creator, beauty of the Spirit, the presence that lies behind our human experience. And we know this immediately. We're born authentic and free, overflowing with joy and with love, beautiful, creative. And parents see that when they interact with their little ones. I remember so fondly with my son and daughter those precious moments when they were newborns, of just looking in their eyes and just overwhelmed at such a beautiful thing in my arms. And those are just meant to be glimpses of the presence from which this beautiful thing was created and arrived as a gift to my soul, a reminder of what was true before we started building up all of our filters that lie on top of this pure light. And so I want to think about for a minute with you this very basic question. If you go back and think about yourself as a baby, um, I know some of us are a little bit older and it's been a while, but just think back to yourself as a baby. So much has changed since then, right? When we look at our experience as a newborn and growing up as toddlers and into our impressionable teenage years, and now as adults looking at ourselves in the mirror. The question, the distinction, what has changed since then, since we were babies? And is there anything that hasn't changed since then? Is there anything when I was a baby that remains the exact same and identical then as it is now? So let me just open it up here for a minute. What has changed since then? This hopefully is an obvious question. What has changed since the time that we were born in our experience? What are your thoughts? Go ahead, Melissa. What's changed?
I,
Some of these should be fairly obvious.
I would think pretty much everything except
Okay.
our well, our actually unconsciousness, but our the unconscious spirit within us.
Say more about so let's go back for a second, and I know it probably seems obvious, but what has changed? Let's name some of the things that have changed.
Well, our body has changed. Our
But that's probably the most obvious, right? As a baby
yeah,
looking in the mirror, and Melissa and I looking in the mirror at ourselves today, a lot has changed. That's an
yeah.
understatement. So much has changed. What else? What else has changed?
I think awareness of others, awareness that you're not the only one changes.
So your interactions,
Yeah.
the way that you interact has changed.
Yes.
What else?
ahead.
You're sorry.
Your
Go
knowledge.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Knowledge is what we know. That certainly has changed. I think Lenny was probably brilliant as a 6-month-old, but not as brilliant as he is today. He's gained a lot more as he's taken in and read and interacted, right? Studied. So we've gained a lot of
Our
knowledge since then. What else, Jack?
our ability to reason.
Our reasoning ability, so our capacity has changed. We've opened up in the way that we understand things. I'm going to even go more basic than that, both Melissa and Jack. I would say our thoughts come and go and have changed drastically since we were babies. We didn't even know as a newborn that this was a hand. We
Right.
just had a sensation that we recognized and couldn't label. There were no labels. So
Mhm.
those thoughts and the emotions tied to those thoughts have come and gone. They're temporary and transient. So, do you remember back to the original question? What does the essential mean? Anything that is transient and temporary can't be the original me. So, even though I exist behind those temporary and transient things, I'm not identified by any of them. All right. I would like all of us to say this together with me. I am not my thoughts.
My thoughts.
All right, let's
I am
repeat that together. Ready? On three. 1, 2, 3. I
I
am
am
not my
my
thoughts.
thoughts.
Now, the second phrase, let's repeat that on 3. 1, 2, 3. I
I
am
am
that
the
which is
which is
aware
aware of
of my
my
thoughts.
thoughts.
One of the images, one of the metaphors that's most used by wisdom teachers that I've read over the years is a hurricane. And on the left is one coming off the coast, and on the right is just an artist's rendition of a hurricane. But what do we know about that point right in the dead center of that hurricane?
It's absolutely still. It's
It
totally
is
peaceful.
perfectly calm. And I was in Florida when one came through, and I remember it. The trees were like this for well over an hour, and then all of a sudden, just this deathly peace and calm. And then the trees were blowing the other direction as the other side of the storm came through. But in the center was this absolute peace, stillness. That is at the center of our being. That calm and that peace is the awareness, the consciousness, the spirit that's aware of everything happening around us and even in us, but not identified with any of that. It's not caught up in the spiral. So this is one of the hardest things that I've had to understand. It took, this is one of the 37, maybe in this case, 137 times to hear it, that I'm not my thoughts. When my mind is going 137 miles an hour, like in a hurricane, it feels like that's me. But that's just your mind on overdrive trying to make sense of all of the inputs that it's taking in, both around us and in us. So to say that I'm not my thoughts begs the question, well, if I'm not my thoughts, then what am I? At my essence, what am I? What does that mean? What are the implications of that? Well, I think the hurricane is just a beautiful example. It's a metaphor. I am the center, calm, peaceful space at the center of it, present to what's happening around me, both my circumstances and even the swirl of my thoughts and emotions. All of that is swirling. But in the middle of that, there's this peaceful, calm, untouched by the chaos around it, and unaffected, not identified with any of it. And so let's just expand that from thoughts to all of these things. I am not my thoughts, my emotions, sensations. This is the way I interact with the world. I am not the sights and sounds and touch and smells. Those are not what defines me. Those are things that allow me to interact with the world, with the people and things around me, but that's not my identity. Oh, that's a tough one. I am not my memories. Well, Mo, what about those horrible things that happened to me as a child? What about the harsh words and cruel things that were done and said to me growing up and during my impressionable years? And I think about those things come up all the time. That's part of this. That is part of the swirl, the chaos that's always swirling in and around me. But there's a calm place where I can watch, I can observe those things and not identify. Those memories don't have to suck me into the spiral. I did that for years. Every time something would trigger me, it had nothing to do with the person, what they said. It was the memory attached to that trigger. And that, I would just get sucked up right in 5 seconds flat, like a Corvette going from 0 to 100. I would be in it. And just, I'm learning now when that trigger hits to pause, take a deep breath, and remember that calm place in the middle, able to watch and observe and be present to all of those things that are happening without identifying with it. Experiences. So even more than just our memories is the experiences we go through. We so easily define ourselves by those things. But those are not who we are. Those are the objects that we are aware of in our consciousness. Um, Kind of like all of you remember the Wizard of Oz, all the stuff that was caught up in the tornado. You had houses and barns and cows in there, So those are all the things in our lives that when we close our eyes, those things come up in our consciousness, in our awareness. And it's so easy to think, yeah, that's me. But God is wanting to remind us, I think, that you aren't those experiences. You aren't the thoughts and feelings attached to those experiences. You are the one who had those experiences from a place of peace. That same spirit that you came into the world with as a baby, that consciousness, that awareness has not changed one iota until this moment when you're looking in the mirror and thinking about all that has changed versus what hasn't changed in our experience. So I'm going to pause there for a second and kind of open it up to back to our opening question. What is the essential me? What is the essence of me? And we talked about all the things that have changed from when Melissa was a baby to when she's looking in the mirror now. So much has changed. But there's one thing that hasn't. And I kind of wanted to use that as a starting point to get your thoughts and experiences related to when you think of your essence, who you are. How would you answer that question? Who are you?
Well, everything you listed there, as far as I'm concerned, are added value to who I am. My experience, my memories, I mean, the songs I've heard, I'm getting in the habit now of putting my headphones on and going to sleep listening to Pandora, for example. And I'm hearing all kinds of things, and the songs I've been listening to for years that I've never heard before. They're adding to my understanding of life. And more importantly, everything there, I'm a very experiential person, and everything you listed there adds to my ability to communicate, therefore be in community with other people. I mean, the original Little Bobby demanded food and dirtied his drawers. Now I'm sure that was a beautiful thing to you got the little baby thing, which by the way, we all look like Winston Churchill, if you'll remember, but it, but I see all of the things that you're talking about in the song Place to Pray. I talked about the good times and hard times, not bad times, but I see all of those things you're talking about as adding value to my life. As a matter of fact, going all the way back to the lens that you spoke about, each of those adds color to the light that comes from me. I'm not just a beam of white light. I'm like a prism. And as changes go on, as the wheel turns, and for the life of me, I can't think of that toy we used to have but that you'd look in and you could turn the wheel and all the colors changed and so on. But those things all,
Is that like a
they're
kaleidoscope, Bob?
yeah,
Kaleidoscope.
exactly. They are all the things that you've named are components to the artwork of my life, so that I'm not just a still hole in the middle. I really like the artist's depiction of the hurricane, in that it showed what like weather radar would have shown. It showed where it was really
Right.
intense, and it was orange and red and then blue and green, and that made it beautiful
Nice.
to me. So that's how I see these things. I do not see them in the negative. I see them I see them as things that cause me to relate, which I value a great deal.
I think you're making a really important point, and Jack, I see you raised your hand. The difference between the light and the colors that get expressed when it hits the prism is that the colors of the prism, all of the human experiences that we had, it is so easy to identify those experiences as being us as opposed to belonging to us. It's the belonging to us that makes it a healthy way to carry those experiences. But for example, if we have something really harsh or hard happen to us as a 12-year-old that we still are triggered by today, then we've allowed that light to say that it is the experience as opposed to shining through the experience. And I think that's an important distinction. We don't identify with, we carry those in a healthy way so that we see that what's behind the experience, God's spirit joined with our spirit, continues to be at peace.
So the real question then becomes, where's the line between manifestation and the lack thereof?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am who I express based on all of those experiences. Some of them good, some of them hard, but what comes out of my mouth, what I see out of my eyes, what I share with other people, what informs my life is the sum total of what I have gleaned from all those various classifications, and they therefore make me unique, and fit it in certain places where other people might not fit, and other people are unique and they fit in places where I don't fit. But I see it all as the mosaic, man, the artwork, the tapestry, which is multiple colors on its face, but it's all kinds of knots behind it. And the face of the tapestry is only possible because of the accumulation of knots that you can't see. And those are experiences, those are emotions, those are good times and hard times. So from a manifestation standpoint, I think I am all of those things, which is I don't really want to say evolution, but it really is a correct word, maybe, which is an evolution of what was added to that perfect little spirit 80 years ago.
Hmm. Hmm.
Jack, Sharon.
I'm, I know. I
Hi.
love everything Bob said. I totally do. Because a very wise person once said that we're the sum and total of our experiences and how we present them in our lives. We allow them to affect our lives. The manifestation of it is that sum total. But your original question, I think, was what hadn't changed? What doesn't change? And the first thing that
Mm-hmm.
came to my mind, the only thing that I can think of that doesn't change, affected by outside anything, is that original source, that connection with the source. And we would obviously say God ourselves, that is pure and there. And if we can just tap back into it, it's what holds us together, regardless of all the maelstrom going on around us in the storms of life. Um, one of the things I thought of while you were explaining some of these things was when I was a little girl, I had a dentist that didn't believe in Novocaine and didn't
Oh
believe
no.
and Molly. Well, my father picked our medical people when I was a kid, and our doctor was an ex-army guy who always slugged you and gave you a bruise before he gave you a shot in your arm, which actually worked out very well. It made me tough as I got older. I'm not as afraid of shots as some people are, but not having Novocaine to this day, I still say, no, that's okay if I'm going to get a filling. And they look at me like I have three heads or something. But he taught me something. He said, just look outside yourself. He said, find this a space, something to focus on in your mind, and you won't notice it. And it works. It works for that kind of pain. I wish it worked for all kinds of pain, but it does work for a lot of kinds of pain and challenge. Is you can draw yourself out to where say, hey, God, can we just focus on each other? And it takes us back to that beautiful, pure connection that wasn't affected by any of the things we've learned since or experienced since. So that would be my answer to that question, was that connection that we have with our creator who loves us more than anything. Doesn't change.
I love that. I love that. Gracie.
Talking about the essence of me, I think I'm growing into the belief that I am Grace. It sounds crazy, but my parents had three boys before they had me, and they always told me three rowdy boys and then came Grace. And it was a painless labor, and she said I was the best baby, never complained. And my parents were Jesus followers, but I think more important, they knew they were loved by Jesus. They knew they were
Mm,
perfectly loved. And I got that from them. Even when I was in the darkest places in my life, I always had that feeling that I was loved. And people have constantly told me, how do you stay calm in these situations? And I think about it, and it's nothing that I do, it's who I am. I don't have the grace to get through them. I am the grace. And it's not because I'm special,
mm.
it's because I'm in union with grace.
I think that's what Sharon just described, that original connection with the source has not changed. Um, and I've heard the term ego, and we usually connotate that negatively. But the ego is simply the sum of our learned experiences. The trick is, I think, living through the ego as an expression of the source and connection to source versus letting the ego run the show, which you can summarize it this way. The ego makes a great servant, but a horrible master. So the ego, in humble servitude to the original connection with Source, allows us to express that light in a beautiful myriad of colors and ways through our lives. That's the healthy way that we express through the ego. But often, what we do is we allow that to lead the way, and that ends up obscuring rather than expressing. It ends up obscuring that pure original light of our being, that connection with the source. So, yeah, thank you, Gracie. Bob.
Joe was next, I think. I want to hear what she has to say.
Oh, okay, go
I'll
ahead,
be
Joe.
quick, Bob. Thanks. Mo,
No, you're good. You're good. Don't take
this
your
is
time.
so good. I think we're all thinking the same thing, because when you asked the question, my instant thought was the Imago Dei. And then came the words, my value hasn't changed, or our value. And that really hit something in me, because if my value at, from the moment I arrived on this earth is the same as it is today, then I haven't done anything to muck it up. I haven't lost it. And that was a really powerful thought that maybe I haven't thought before. So thank you so much.
I am guessing that we may have the gift in the next week or two of a song that Joe might put together related to our original value never having been, uh, it hasn't gone up, it hasn't gone down. It was priceless to begin with, and it's priceless now. That's a beautiful thought. Go ahead, Bob.
So as we grow our ego, and I haven't heard the word soul thrown in here, and I've been thinking about it since the first moment of the call. Where's the soul? And really, soul and spirit are interactive based on the definitions that I can look at. It's a semantic, not a difference. But so we have a choice. We've been taught to believe that our natural action is to degrade that original value, that we really, first of all, one of our forefathers many times back, Adam, polluted the pool, and therefore our default is, as we grow forward, as we develop our ego, if you will, is always to the negative. I don't believe that. I believe that each of these things add value, and I believe that's part of the system. I believe that I'm Lord thy God, and I change not. The one thing that doesn't change about God is continued creation and revelation. There's no status quo in God. There's no, it stops here and this is it. Religion worked really hard to make that happen, but it hasn't worked really well because it's false. So when Moses walked into Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go," and he said, "Who sent you?" And Moses said, "I am sent me." He certainly was speaking what God had told him to do, but he was speaking it as Moses, because Moses am. I see the formula of being fearfully and wonderfully made as being far more in the image and likeness of God than we've been taught we are. And therefore, we may not get it right all the time, but even when we get it wrong, the default comes back to making it right. I'm persuaded that he's able to keep that which I've committed unto him against, in other words, even when you make a mistake, which by the way you think is a mistake because of the filters that you've been given, you're assuming it's a mistake. I can look back in my life now and see myriads of time when at the time I thought I blew it. In reality, it was a really important part of a really cool thing that was much bigger than I perceived it was. I mean, I go back to the girl I was dating, and she and I had a fight before we went out on that Tuesday night, and I left her apartment. That was a failed evening, right? But I went by the sorority house, and there was Flo. So that's a very quick example of what would look like a negative situation that turned into an eternally valuable situation for me. And my life's full of them. So I think default is not a good word because it implies negative, but I think the arc of our creation leads us toward the positive, not the negative.
Bob, were you on the call a few weeks ago where we talked? This was a Thursday call. My brother was on. We talked about the I am statement in John 14. Do you remember
Yep.
that?
When Soup
So
was on, absolutely.
when
Yeah.
Soup was on, that's right.
Yeah.
And we talked about God's name is probably the most accurate way of describing God, because there was nothing attached after it. He didn't say, I am this or I am that. He just said, I am. I am that I am. And there's an aspect of being the Imago Dei where we can confidently say with that same authority, I am. Not I am this, I am that, I am my thoughts, I am my emotions. I am, and from the I am get expressed all of these things. I'm not identified by, I'm expressed through those things.
I do remember that. That's
Mm.
a powerful concept. When we get in troubles, when we start putting isms at the end of it, or shuns at the end of it. I am of this shun, or I am of this ism, right? But the fact, you're
Yes,
exactly right. So getting back to your original premise, we am.
we am.
We am.
Yes.
All the way back. And then all of the things that are added to that, all of the experiences, the emotions, the trials and tribulations, all of those things multiply am. They express am in ways that fit in the whole picture. Just my opinion.
There is something really astounding, very mind-blowing, when we think about, let's say, I'll just use Melissa and JL as examples, that as babies, the I am reality that defined them is the same I am reality that defines them today. That has not and cannot change in its essence, its core. What does change are all of the things that I listed on the right that become expressions of that if we don't let them obscure, if we let them be expressions of. We are so easily caught into the spiral that I'm defined by things that have happened to me that have nothing to do with me. As an example, harsh words that someone said that I internalized and believed for 3 decades. That was true. That was my experience. I believed that someone's words in junior high defined who I was or who I thought I was for decades before I realized those words had nothing to do with me. They were a projection of someone else's hurt that they were putting on me, but I took it in as if it were true. So essentially, I escalated my experience and my understanding, the meaning I attached to it, over the fundamental reality that defined my life. As Joe said, the value I attached to the words that were spoken to me against me, rather than the value assigned to me at birth. And I think that's a lot of our stories. I think a lot of us do that without thinking about it. It's subconscious. Jack.
Yeah, I had one question and probably another one, but I was looking at the list and I was thinking about reaction. Where does reaction come in? Because I was thinking one of my favorite little things is you're driving down the road and you see a leaf floating in front of the car and it hits the windshield. Try not to blink. I mean, it's you hear about in the Midwest there's a rattlesnake in an aquarium and they'll give you $1,000 if you can hold your hand on the glass when it strikes. But the other thing is like if you have your basic element, like a hydrogen and you add two things of oxygen, you changed that thing and then you can add other elements to it, but it continues to change. What you're trying to, what your question is the essence of the one element staying unchanged by things coming in and adding themselves to you. Because we carry all of that. When you say what somebody said of you at one point and how that changed how you reacted and responded to the world, it brought up a reflex to that, or an an automatic, like if somebody said this and all of a sudden you're brought back to that place. But that wasn't you, but that's how you perceived you.
You're defining something really important. Let me hit quickly the first thing you said about the reaction. Yes, some of those instincts that we have are based on survival, and we were born with some of those things. And I think we've overlaid a default of fear and inadequacy because of what culture has brought to the table. And so we immediately react to some things out of fear rather than out of confidence, especially if a trigger from something that happens or something somebody says harkens back to something that happened to us in our past. And your hydrogen example, I love the idea that hydrogen, helium, oxygen, all the isotopes emerged from the same fundamental reality, all of them. So before the individual hydrogen and oxygen molecules were in place, before any of that, there was only one reality, and we call that reality God. So we can go back way further than water and way further than the hydrogen and oxygen, back to the reality from which all of those things emerged. Does that make sense? In our lives, so much has changed. You wouldn't recognize a lot of us from the changes from being a baby to now, right? But there's one thing underneath all of that, the fundamental reality that still connects with our source that has never changed. It cannot change. What gets changed is the way that it gets expressed as life experience comes in. We grow, we learn. Does that make sense, Jack?
Yes, before we were before the foundation of the world, we were.
Exactly. Chosen in love, holy and blameless, before the foundation of the world. Exactly.
And the 2-O, Jack, is what gave life to the H.
JL.
I'm going to go back to the I am statement. One of the things that I believe that we can do to maybe institute that thought process in our life is to meditate on that I am and drop off all those things that we've been taught. I mean, there are people out there that will flat out just tell you, you know, I'm the victim. You know, well, you're not. You are who you are. And one of the things I did, I meditated on the I am enough that I use it in introductions. When I introduce myself to somebody, I say, I am J.L. Gray. And so it just solidifies that in my mind every time I introduce myself to somebody. And it solidifies that position that I have in Christ, or Christ in me, the hope of glory. You know what I mean? And, you know, but I deal with people all the time that are, you know, um, they've been brainwashed and taught that they're less than. And that is not the truth. The truth is that we are God, absolutely God's favorite, each and every one of us. You know, and I have people question me about that. They're like, well, how can you be his favorite and me be his favorite? And I said, because his thoughts are wholly on each one of us all at the same time. So he treats each one of us as individuals. I know it's way over our head, isn't it? But he treats each one of us as individuals, but it's not. We're not. We're all his family, but yet we're an individual in his sight, and he focuses on us individually all the time. He's that huge. He's that big.
Maybe Lenny can help us with this. That can only be possible if God is infinite.
Well, yes.
That individual attention can only be possible because infinity, it isn't possible to split up. You get all of infinity directed towards you at the same time as someone else. And it doesn't get divided in any sense whatsoever.
I think it's I think sometimes it's a little bit dangerous to try and explain God. He's beyond comprehension. You know what I mean?
To that. Lenny, how did that explanation sound to you? What would you add?
The infinity is pretty good. The problem with infinity interacting with infinite flesh is where the finite flesh that comes up with the problem. It's like that example of the visual spectrum that we used a while back.
Yes.
We're only seeing at best maybe 1 to 10% of it, even if we use special lenses for infrared and night vision and all that sort of thing. It's still only a small percentage of it. So God is so much more infinite than that and far beyond what we could possibly conceive of with our physical brains.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank you.
His love is just the pure infinite.
That's because we only use 10% of our brain.
Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's way, 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 way bigger than.
Amen.
We don't need to figure it out. We just need to participate in it.
Exactly. Yes. 111% agree. Melissa, I'm so glad you raised your hand. I was going to call on you. Now I don't have to because you raised your hand. Awesome. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was sitting here thinking of I am, the phrase I am. And I wish I could remember it more closely, but Jonathan Cahn expresses it beautifully in the Book of Mysteries. It not only is it a declaration of who you are, at the same time, it's a declaration of our connection to the source. Because we don't say our name without saying his first. I am Melissa states my identity and my connection to God all in one. I don't know. It's not nearly as profound as the way Jonathan Cahn expresses it, but that's what I was thinking about.
I love it. Go, Joe.
Mo, you have me thinking thoughts that I've never thought before. Here we go. And Lenny, you play into this because just as you guys were talking about infinity and the spectrum of, that we can only see 10% of the light, I thought, I wonder if there's ways that I don't even know that I'm being loved because I can only perceive it, 10% of it. And how cool to think that I can rest back in the utter mystery and wonder that there is 90% of ways I'm not even maybe going to be able to pick up on that I'm being loved and held in each moment. And I just think that's so cool.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Joe, I just wanted to jump on what Melissa had just said about I am. We can't say our name without first saying I am, like JL introduces himself. I am, pause, JL. That in the I am, which is the reality before creation, is infinite love. So we were born into infinite love. And that remains the core of our being. It's the core reality of our being. I am love. And so I think what we've done today is more talk about what I am not. I am not, and then fill in the blank. But just that statement, I am, comes with all of what makes God infinite in all of those aspects is directed in and toward us. And I think you're right. We have grasped this much of what it means to be immersed in infinite peace, drawing from an infinite supply of patience, and taking advantage of infinite wisdom and infinite joy bubbling up from within us. I think we've caught this much of it and called it good. And God said, don't stop, dive deep. Dive deep. There's more. There's always enough, but there's so much more. Go, Bob.
Speaking as I am bingle at gmail.com, by the way. The cosmos is a picture, an example of God. And I go back to one day somebody said to me, the universe is expanding at the speed of light. And I said, that's just how fast we could see. And since I said that, by the way, we've been given magnifiers that have allowed us to see a lot faster. That's power. That's work divided by time. And we may only use 10% of our brain, and I don't know who's smart enough to figure that out, but let's assume they're right. But we aren't limited to that. It's not like there's a governor on us. So open up. Don't be afraid to think things. Don't let the negative experiences you've had, don't let the triggering things that you've had, don't let the religion, which would pretty much encompass all of the negative things, don't let that keep you from allowing yourself to think with 11% or 12% or 20% of your mind. And it's interesting that the combination of what do we got? 8 people on this call. There's a possibility we've got 80% of a mind accumulated here, with each of us bringing 10% of one. Therein is the value of forsake not for yourself to offer gathering one with another. That doesn't mean to go sit in a pew somewhere and have somebody do a musical seance and a TED talk. It means come together and combine yourselves. Come together and join is the right word, yourselves with each other, and allow that to expand. Well, I will walk away from this call with my brain, a little bit more of my brain used than when I started the call. And I think that happens all the time. We may look back one of these days and find out, look back to where we were 30 or 40 years ago and find out that we aren't using 10% anymore. Now we're using 15% or 16% or 20%, because we are not limited to that statistic. We don't even have to accept it as truth, by the way.
Yeah, I love
It's
it.
way big, people.
I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that's what the study says.
Yeah,
I've
I
seen
don't,
those
I don't
same
agree.
ones.
I don't agree with all those kind of studies and stuff most of the time.
JL, I would like to kind of close us with two thoughts about our time, and you can take it wherever you'd like to.
Okay.
First, your meditation on the I am. I would love for all of us to participate in that, in the coming week. Um, I am, and then a pause to reflect on what does that imply about the essential me. I am no fill in the blank after that. And two, the idea for me of I am comes with an even better upgrade than 10, let's say to 15 or 25 or 45% of
yeah,
our brain. The upgrade of I am allows us to bypass the mind altogether and
mhm,
commune deep to deep,
Yeah.
spirit to spirit, our spirit joined with God's spirit before thought comes into play. So even as I upgrade my ability to use my brain power, which is great, I think we are all looking to expand our minds. There is a reality that bypasses because it's deeper than the mind itself. And that place we know as spirit, where God dwells, and our spirit and God's spirit are joined. So in that place, I am is independent of our thought. And can we meditate and connect from that place and then let that get expressed through our lives, in our songs and our words and our actions and our interactions and relationships, all of that.
like
What
BB
what a
King said,
beautiful, go ahead,
like
bud.
BB King said about Stevie Ray Vaughan. He said Stevie Ray's licks don't go through his mind; they come straight from his soul to the fingerboard.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, no filters.
no filters.
Well, I think that for all of us to do some meditation on the I am would be a huge thing. And I think it would be very beneficial for all of us. And I'm going to make this clarification. When I said we use 10% of our brain, that's the scientific study. I believe that once we realize who we are in Christ, we gain considerably more part of our brain because we end up realizing we have the mind of Christ.
Amen.
And so it changes the percentage drastically, I believe, at that point. And so well, Mo, let me ask you this.
Yeah,
Would you be interested in doing a follow-up on, say, like the 8th of February?
I would love to do that. Let's plan on it.
Okay. That way we can kind of follow up on what we're doing here and talk about our meditation on I am
Yeah, that
and
would be fantastic.
how that's worked out for us. So yeah, it'd be great. So
Interesting. It doesn't seem that Jesus had any filters.
yeah,
That's the mind of
No,
Christ.
he was notably absent of the
yeah,
normal filters we think he should have had, and he just
yeah.
didn't.
Well, my wife thinks I'm that way sometimes.
Melissa, I have a short article that I'd like to send when you send out the recording. So I'll send that to you
Okay.
for you to attach to that when you're ready to send out the link.
Okay. I'll look
Thank
for
you
it.
so much. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you once again, Mo, for being here today, and thanks everybody for being on the call, on the meeting. And I just, I believe that we're all in for a good week ahead. And
Yes.
don't forget, we have Catherine Toon on next week. And so that'll be fun too. That'll be exciting. And then because
She's
of
great.
some health issues, we will not be having dinner tonight with the locals in town. So sorry. Just what it is. I got to take care of my baby.
Definitely.
Weird Moss Day.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, love you all, and we will see you all down the road. Have a good
Sounds
week.
great. Much
Tell
love. Take care, Jill.
Shalom,
Tell
shalom.
her we love her and we're praying for her and we're visualizing her healed.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
We'll see y'all later. Shalom.
Take
Shalom,
care, everyone.
shalom.
Thank you. Shalom, shalom.